Let's come, Dipankar, to the image the media created of the Prime Minister after the first interaction and ask whether that still holds good after the second. One image was that this was a man who was passing the buck, particularly on 2G, and was not willing to accept any level of prime ministerial responsibility. Does that image still hold good after yesterday's performance in Parliament? Was he buck passing yesterday?
Well, he was much more forthright, as everybody has said. But you know, it's very possible for both these images to coexist. And in fact, they do. If you ask people, they'll say, well, there's a Prime Minister who sort of came out and wanted to explain himself but didn't do a good job. He showed himself as a weak Prime Minister, and yesterday he seemed much more forthright, especially when he was blaming the other parties for their lapses. But these two images are not one at the expense of the other. It's just, you know, when you look at snapshots, it's this is overtaking that. But if you take a longer view, you'll find multiple images exist, and people have to make up their mind which image should dominate which.
If we now have, Chandan, a mosaic of images of the Prime Minister and not just a single image or two, what in your mind is the dominant image now today after his two performances with the editors and then in Parliament?
Well, I'm afraid that the image that I think the Prime Minister has himself cultivated, that of being helpless in a situation where coalition dharma prevails and therefore inability to take very tough action, I'm afraid irrespective of a slightly combative performance in Parliament, I don't think that goes away.
That helplessness remains.
Helplessness remains.
Can I interrupt and quote your paper to you? In your editorial after the interaction with TV editors, you were particularly hard on him when he claimed that he had no alternative but to reappoint Raja as communications minister. You said appointing a minister and allotting a particular portfolio is entirely a matter of prime ministerial privilege and discretion. No doubt you're right. But did you forget that Mr. Vajpayee in 98 couldn't appoint a man he wanted, Jaswant Singh, and in that instance it was Mr. Vajpayee's own people who held his hand. Here at any rate it's just allies who are forcing themselves.
Yeah, there's a big difference. See, if within the party or within the party and its supporters there is a difference of opinion, that can be sorted out. But here the thing was so public, Karan. I mean, you know what went on before the appointment of Mr. Raja, especially in UPA 2. And so it was a public spectacle and demonstrated the Prime Minister's utter helplessness. Even earlier, Mr. Karunanidhi had announced the replacement for Mr. Dayanidhi Maran sitting in Chennai. I mean,
one of the magazines that perhaps crystallized the impression of the Prime Minister being helpless, or I should say allegedly helpless, was yours. The cover story that you published had this sentence in its opening paragraph: the Prime Minister told the nation that he was helpless in most matters linked to corruption and had limited authority in coalition politics. To be honest, the Prime Minister never actually said that. That's your interpretation of what you think the Prime Minister said. But do you think you may have overinterpreted?
Well, Karan, I must make one point, which is that the alibi of coalition compulsions, which the media and the opposition completely dismissed and said the Prime Minister was making excuses, I believe that that alibi is fairly well appreciated amongst the general public. While everybody here says that, you know, coalition compulsions can't be an excuse for corruption, but I think as far as the Aam Aadmi and middle class India is concerned, while they don't exonerate him, there is much better appreciation of this particular problem than there is with the media and with the opposition.
No doubt, Vinod, so but this wasn't, can I just interrupt? There's no doubt that you're saying the right thing, but this wasn't in your cover story. In your cover story you said the Prime Minister told the nation he was helpless.
Next time.
Okay. On that, well, I won't push it further. If you admit with that pleasant smile that you might have been wrong, I won't push it further. Let me put it like this, Nalini. The comment that seems to have convinced the media that the PM was allegedly helpless is when he said of his cabinet, things are not entirely the way I would like them. But that's not just understandable in the case of a coalition government, it's often true of single party governments. Was the media being unfair in mistaking honesty for mea culpa?
But the Prime Minister used an Urdu word. He said majboor. He said that there are, he used the word majboori, which actually means that he's actually unable to do this, he's actually hamstrung. So he's saying it himself. I do not think that the media
You think the word
interpreted-
majburi is so important that it actually changes the manner in which you perceive the PM?
Karan, my Prime Minister is saying majburi, so why will I say that it's
But
not
majburis do
important?
exist in politics, he's just being open.
No, I do not agree with Vinod, and neither do I agree with your agreeing with Vinod, that he says that the middle class or the larger India or beyond the television studios or journalists,
I wasn't agreeing with Vinod, I was
right.
simply pointing out that Vinod had changed the position his magazine had taken
all
a week
right,
earlier.
fine. So if you've done that, I do not think that that people are looking at coalition like this. They are actually looking at corruption, and what I do not forgive in politicians is they are now beginning to rationalize corruption, saying corruption
Okay.
is not an issue in vote getting, it's not an issue in elections. You do the work, you be corrupt, you do the work, people are happy with you.
Let's
So
then
this
take a break
hypocrisy-
at that point, and let's come back and ask, given that he's had two major performances that the media has judged, and given also that some, if not most, have changed their position, Chandan of course is the great exception, can the Prime Minister now build on this and change the way the country perceives him, or at a man who's fast approaching 79, is it just too late? That's in a moment's time. See you after the break.